Hello, I'm Alex Turk, and you're listening to the Food Systems podcast brought to you by the Forum for the Future of Agriculture. I had the pleasure of talking to keynote speakers and panelists at the forum in Brussels this year. Here's a flavour of some of their insights and ideas for you to enjoy. Jurgen Tack, welcome to the 17th Forum for the Future of Agriculture. You are the Secretary General of the ELO, the European Landowners Organization, which is a founding partner of the FFA. And you've just been involved in the discussion on financing the transition. How important were the voices on the panel that you heard today?
Well, I think we have heard a good mix of, possibilities to finance that transition, going from a number of market instruments like carbon farming, biodiversity credits, up to the role subsidies are playing and the role profitability is playing, because quite often it's exactly profitability which is completely lost in the discussion, while it remains the most important aspect of every farming activity in Europe.
You've been a critic of subsidies. I know when you look at Flanders and where you reside, yep. The system is quite flawed. Do you feel that there is progress being made? Because we talk about flaws in the system every year in the move towards nature-based solutions to scale.
But look, we have to admit that that's a system that needs subsidies already since 1962. At a certain moment you have to ask yourself the question, is this really working? On the other side, we also have to admit that every 7 years the cap is changing, and every 7 years we are asking very different questions to farmers. If you know that a farmer has an investment cycle of 30 years, if he goes to a bank, he will pay for 30 years for the equipment he is buying, then of course there is a reason that those subsidies are still needed. But that makes that we have to start thinking if we are not able to develop something which is working on the longer term with less subsidies and with a higher profitability for farmers.
And you talked about looking at, when you look at nature-based solutions to scale, and where the money should go. Yep. Who deserves it the best? This was what you were speaking to the forum about today.
Yeah. Well, let's say what we see is that quite often if you have a subsidy discussion, that if the discussion goes about those who need it the most, let's say most of the time we are looking to small-scaled farms. And let's say on the other side, we have a number of objectives, and then I'm referring as well to productivity as to sustainability objectives. And it's quite often not on those smaller farms that we can reach those objectives. So for me, the money should go there for those who are really contributing to the objectives.
Yeah, and moving productivity to link it to environmental issues, this is always, something that has quite loud voices, heated voices, would you say? When we look at the fact that agriculture still accounts for pretty much 11% of the EU's total greenhouse gas emissions, the dial hasn't moved much. Has the debate moved much?
Well, the debate is certainly moving faster than reality, but that's often the case. You have to start somewhere. But I do think that, let's say, we are at the level that let's say the technical and the scientific solutions are there. It's now our task to make sure that they are implemented in the field.
And when you hear voices that come from the other side of the Atlantic that shout of a protectionist agenda, how does that impact when you look at your members? What's your view there?
Yeah. Well, let's say having a global market is extremely important because it makes sure that you are able to keep a number of things in balance. If you have an overproduction on one continent, the other continent can make use of it. Let's say, depending on where you're growing, different crops are possible, or different crops have an optimized growing season, a growing place. That is, of course, something you are losing if you're putting too high tariffs or if you're building all kinds of trade barriers. So I do think that trade barriers, tariffs, are never a good thing for for business.
And was that the consensus on the panel? I mean, what particularly struck a chord with you from some of the other voices on the panel that included from the European Investment Bank, ECF, and NABO?
Well, I've heard almost systematically with everybody that they are still promoting carbon credits and upcoming biodiversity credits. Let it be clear, I'm very much in favor of, for instance, carbon credits. But let's say the European Commission at this moment is making the system so complicated that we see that private companies who were investing in it are just leaving the market. And let's say at a certain moment I was asking questions, why are you making it this complicated? Yes, because we want to be sure there is no greenwashing. But at a certain moment I prefer to be called a greenwasher and do something instead of not doing anything and not helping to get towards a more sustainable future.
And a final word then, I mean, what would you say as, of course, one of the founding partners, how important and how relevant the voice of the forum is now in its 17th year?
Yeah, well, I think, and if we look at the public we have in the room, we still have a very high-level policy public in the room, and the public is still growing throughout those 17 years. So I think the forum remains important because it's that one moment in the year where we are able to bring those voices together. And even if we are not able to discuss in detail, of course, what should be the future, let's say you get a quite good overview of upcoming topics to be discussed.
Jurgen Tack, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the forum this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very much welcome.
You've been listening to another edition of the Food Systems Podcast, brought to you by the Forum for the Future of Agriculture. It's been a pleasure having you with us. Please join us again next time.